Mike John Smith retired. You guys are close to the same era, same part of the metro.
We're farmers. He and I farm together. We share farm equipment.
That's right.
We're much better at that than we are at coaching.
What are your thoughts on John and what he's meant to OSU in his career?
So I was thinking the other day, I don't know when they started on his statue, but it should have been a while back. I don't think we've ever had anybody at this university who's been the best they've done in the world for 7 years. He was the best in the world at what he did for 7 years. You know what I'm saying? I mean, that's a pretty amazing. Now, Barry Sanders was for 1 year. I agree with that. But John was the best at what he did in the world for 6 or 7 years. 2 Olympic golds, obviously. Won 150 matches here, which is still, I think, is still a record. And he was their head coach for 33 years. So there's nobody on this campus that deserves a statue more of him. The only debate is, do you make it of him as a wrestler or as a coach? I say you make it a collage and do both. Since you asked, I'm glad you asked. I was thinking about that last night. Who else deserves one other than him? I mean, we've had a lot of people do amazing things here, but he was the best in the world at what he did, period.
He's a little bit, just a little bit older than you, I think. Mm-hmm. 1 year, 2 years. What'd you think about him growing up in Middale?
So John and I traveled in summers and did freestyle wrestling. We made some trips around the country to Kansas. We wrestled up in Boulder. I would have been about 10 or 12, John probably 14, somewhere in that area. Everywhere we knew, people knew who John Smith was. And there was about 3 or 4 of us that traveled together in the summers wrestling, and the rest of us were fighting for our life, and they all knew who John was. But John was always a fierce competitor and about as loyal a Cowboy as you could get, and a commitment of, I think John was a senior in about 83, something like that. So from that time on, he was committed to Oklahoma State University, which is a long, long time.
You coached for 33 years. I think you'd have to coach another 12 or so to get to that.
I can make that.
Is that?
I'd say that there's a lot of wear on tear on all head coaches. I would say 33 for a wrestling coach would be like 22 for a football coach. And here's why. Neither John or I are very good at math, but I have 140 and John has about 25, 30, something like that.
He's in there and wrestles with him.
Well, I know, and that's what I'm saying. John's different. John wrestled at times, I think, with a torn ACL. So anyway, I have a pretty high standard for John Smith as a person, a coach, and a competitor.
Do you remember, like your dad, he said when y'all would travel, you'd walk into a gym, and a lot of the kids John's age and size, their parents, they'd walk out. They'd see John show up for the tournament, they'd just roll it.
Well, that's what I was referring to. They knew who John Smith was. When John came in, they didn't know if they want to pay the entry fee, and that's just the way it was with him in this part of the country. And that was prior to social media and the internet, but he had a reputation that preceded him when we showed up in tournaments.